All right, so it is preview season here on Jackson Kruger Sports. Some of my favorite videos to make are these previews. In fact, my favorite videos to make are these previews. I'll be doing these for every playoff game, but I figured since this game is basically a playoff game, let's do one for this as well. The way this is going to work is in this video, I will be breaking down the Raiders offense, how I think they will attack the Chargers defense, sort of with scheme and also using the numbers from the first time these two teams played. And then in another video, I will do the other half of it. And in that video, I'll give my prediction for who's going to win. That should be out later today, so be on the lookout for that. But anyways, yeah, let's get into the preview for this game. And the first way I think we can preview this game is let's look back and see what happened last game. So what you see on your screen now, this is going to be the Raiders offense, and this is ranking them from highest to lowest in terms of how well they did in PFF grade. I know PFF grade, blah, blah, blah. It's an all right tool to use, and I think specifically for one game can be a really good tool to use to see who performed well this first time these two teams played and who performed poorly. At the top of the list for the Raiders, you have guys like Kolton Miller, Josh Jacobs, Derek Carr, Willie Snead. Willie Snead is there, but, you know, he's kind of there. You know, he only had 5 snaps. That's sort of a bit misleading. You know, Hunter Renfrow at number 5. So it's kind of the usual suspects plus like a random Willie Snead sighting. That's what you sort of would expect. Towards the bottom, you are going to see a little bit of interesting stuff. So Alex Leatherwood and also Foster Moreau. And I think that's actually a little bit interesting, but we'll get more on that in a second. Another thing I want to bring your attention to is number 12 is Darren Waller. Again, just put a pin in that. You'll see where we're going with this at a certain point. Now moving over to the defensive side of things. So number 1 is Joey Bosa. And this kind of makes some sense, right? I mean, Joey Bosa did get some time against Alex Leatherwood, so that makes sense that he would perform well against Alex Leatherwood. Sure, certainly. You also have really the defensive line in front 7 up there at the top for Los Angeles. That does make some sense as well. Although I also want to bring your attention to, I think the other thing worth noting is going to be Derwin James at number 16. Derwin James posted his second lowest grade of the season in this game against the Raiders. Well, why is that? Again, we'll get into it. This is just kind of setting the table. This is the first interesting stat from the first game that jumped out at me. So you look at their rushing totals, not great. And they didn't run the ball a ton, but they weren't good at running the ball when they did. Josh Jacobs, only 13 carries, only 40 yards. That's 3.1 yards per carry. And part of me was wondering, could this be something with Alex Leatherwood, right? Alex Leatherwood had a really bad day the first time these two teams played each other. There's no denying that. In fact, that was the last game Alex Leatherwood got at tackle. And so maybe you could say, well, maybe they're better now that Leatherwood isn't at tackle, and to some degree they are. I mean, they have ran the ball significantly better since those first 4 weeks, although the question is kind of why. In those first 4 games, the Raiders rushed for on average 3.25 yards per carry. Since then, it's been 4.02 yards per carry, although the important asterisk there is Josh Jacobs missed weeks 2 and 3, so maybe that's also another factor, is because you didn't have your running back. You didn't run the ball as effectively, but you still have been running the ball more effectively since this game once you had Brandon Parker, who, you know, isn't a star by any means, but is a little better than Alex Leatherwood. So let's look at the film. Let's see, why did they struggle at running the football? I mean, this is a team that, you know, everyone has had success seemingly running the football against the Chargers. Why did the Raiders, who value running the football, despite not being great at it, struggle so much at it? Well, a lot of times it was just them making mistakes. Something like this is a great example, where first, Hunter Renfrow and Kolton Miller are going to go up to block the same guy, which I don't think I would necessarily want. I kind of get it, because you don't want Renfrow to have to one-on-one block a linebacker, but still, maybe have Renfrow just chip the edge rusher then or something. Or better yet, just, you know, I don't know, have someone other than Renfrow in this spot if this is what you want to do. But that's not really the main thing I'm complaining about. It's going to be the other side of the field. Los Angeles is going to have their center and right guard double team an interior defensive lineman. Then one of them gets off the double team to block a linebacker. Little things like this, the Raiders really struggled with in the first game. Once this play begins, you're going to notice that in this spot, you're going to see that, I mean, this is, it's a situation where it's going to be difficult for Josh Jacobs to gain some yards. He kind of has to make a read here, but what read do you make? Because the linebacker can get to either gap at this point. You have to get up there and block him a little bit quicker. That's something that the Raiders are going to have to be better at this time around. And again, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, this was week 4. I mean, what does it really matter in relevance to week 18? Well, I actually think that this stuff matters a lot. It's a great way to predict the future by looking back when these two teams have played each other and seeing how they played each other the first time. If you watched my channel last year, it's how I was able to predict how Tampa Bay was going to beat New Orleans, Green Bay, and Kansas City, and also exactly how those games were going to go. It was largely through just watching the previous time those teams had played. Anyways, as you see, Jacobs can't get much there, so that's one thing you're going to have to get better at. It just is. Like, this one's another example of basically the exact same thing. So it's 44 for Los Angeles. That's who they're trying to get up and block. It's, Kazir White, that's the linebacker that they're trying to block, who's actually having a good season for the Chargers, by the way. So, maybe not the easiest guy to block, but again, what's worth mentioning about this kind of stuff is against the Chargers, you typically have a guy that you can, every guy you can block. Sometimes you have to leave someone on block, but when you're playing the Chargers, they'll play a lot of quarters coverage, which means that the safeties are kind of the unblocked men, and with both of them further deep, this means that you can actually gain some yards. But of course, you have to make your blocks. Everyone has to make their blocks, and if you're going to double team, you have to get off the double team quick enough to get to your block. Look at how right when this play begins, you see just immediately, it's just not over enough. 44 can easily run in and fill that gap. You got to get there quicker. Look, John Simpson, that's the guy who is out of position. He's not able to get back, and that's a huge reason why that play was not able to work right there. So you have to get off the double teams quicker, or maybe you just say, you know what, let's just do less double teams. I mean, if we have a guy to block everyone, let's just block everyone. Like, that might actually be a legitimately smarter strategy here, or at least have that in your back pocket and be willing to shift to that, because everyone knows the Chargers' weakness is the run defense. Well, if you're going to attack their weakness, you can't be weak at it yourself, because then there's no attack going. Also, stuff like this did happen. I mean, you saw really, Joey Bosa just had a field day, quite frankly, going up against Alex Leatherwood. And that's not going to happen. And it's not going to happen for a couple reasons. One, Alex Leatherwood is no longer a tackle. And two, I think that probably you're just going to see him get chipped a lot. I think pay attention to Joey Bosa. He's a force. Use the extra resources you have to listen. The difference between having a halfback just run a check down route and having a halfback chip an edge rusher and then run a check down route is very minuscule in terms of the impact it has in the passing game, but it's very good in terms of how much extra time it gets you, if that makes sense. So just do that. Pay attention to Joey Bosa. He's good, especially if you don't have the best tackles going on him. If he's on Colton Miller, leave him one-on-one. But they get to choose where they line up. They'll probably have him line up a good amount on the right tackle. As you see on this play, you're going to notice that there is going to be this, a strip sack fumble. The Raiders somehow recovered that one, but still, that's not what you want to have happen, because obviously those sacks can be devastating and they can stall drives. So you want to avoid that if possible. And I think the Raiders will do a better job, but again, you're never going to shut him down. He's Joey Bosa. He's really good. Now, there's also something like this that I find very interesting. So one of the real fascinating things about this game is how both of these teams have really struggled against tight ends this year. I mean, one of the stars of the first time these two teams played was Jared Cook. And then, I think Darren Waller could have a huge impact in this next one. And he still had a somewhat significant impact in this one. Tight ends are going to be the key to this football game. And obviously there's a big advantage with the Raiders when it comes to Darren Waller. He's very good. This is the kind of thing where you think about for the Chargers, my first thought is, why does this team give up so many yards to tight ends if they have Derwin James? Isn't Derwin James getting used to help the tight ends? Well, not so much. It's not really all he does. They don't really just have okay, Derwin James, you're going to cover the tight end. You might want to do that against Darren Waller, though. That might be a pretty good idea, because Waller's very good. Like on this play, what's happening is that it's going to be a cover 2 man, and you see Darren Waller, he's running the route right there. And quite frankly, he's just a tough guy to cover. I mean, even if you have a great defender on him, there's only so much you can do. And as you see, Carr is going to be able to hit Waller here. And listen, that's one of the Chargers' weaknesses is the yards they give up to tight ends. So hit your tight end, especially when you have this superstar tight end. Now, there's a clear asterisk here, right? The Raiders keep saying they're expecting to get Darren Waller back. They hope to get Darren Waller back, but we haven't seen him in a few weeks now. We haven't seen him since Thanksgiving, actually. So it's been a minute, and he might not be in football shape, and he might be on a snap count. So if that's the case, that's a huge advantage for the Chargers, because obviously not having a key guy in what I would create a game plan for, that's going to, hurt them, especially if, even if you just can't practice for the entire week, that's going to hurt the Raiders. So that's a huge advantage LA. But also, like, something like this is how the Chargers are, susceptible to getting beat on these types of plays and really getting beat with tight ends. It's sometimes less about the talent they have and more about just the scheme. They like to play a lot of zone coverage, and so you can get beat by stuff like this, which is going to be a play action with Waller running over the middle. This is something that the Raiders do like to do from time to time. Watch how when Carr takes the snap, you see that even with Waller getting sort of bumped a little bit, he's able to fight through it, and he's open at this point. Not wide open. It's going to be a tough throw, but Derek Carr can make those tough throws. Look, Carr is going to be able to, while moving a little bit, still make a tough throw, and he's able to get it to Darren Waller. I do trust that Carr and the Raiders can hook up on this kind of stuff relatively often, and I think they should. I think they should run the ball well and run a lot of play actions. Like, that's something I think that they should do in this one. Again, I don't know how well these plays can work with Foster Moreau, who, as I mentioned, did not have his best game when he played the first time, although it also was just 17 snaps, so maybe that was it. Maybe he just didn't get enough playing time, and a lot of it was blocking as well, so definitely an asterisk on that one as well. Small sample size. If I had to bet, I would think that he would probably do all right, even if Waller isn't there, because a lot of this stuff is scheme stuff, and it's Derek Carr stuff instead of actually the team itself. Finally, one last thing I want to talk about. To me, this could be the difference in the game. Is going to be something like this, where it's a cover 3 zone, so only a single safety deep coverage, but even against 2 safety deep coverages, you still can get some deep shots every now and then. Also worth noting that we did see the Chargers kind of go to a cover 3 a decent amount against the Raiders once they realized that, like, hey, the Raiders are running the ball a lot. Let's get an extra guy in the box, which, that's significant, and that probably is a big part of why we saw them struggle a little bit more at running the ball than other teams have against the Chargers. But anyways, what I want to talk about here is Henry Ruggs' speed was a clear factor the first time these two teams played, and it was. And obviously, Henry Ruggs isn't coming back, which is, unfortunate for the Chargers' game plan, unfortunate for the Raiders' game plan. It is fortunate for the Chargers' game plan, but there still is that Deshaun Jackson guy you have to worry about, who is very explosive as well. And really, the reality is there's kind of a bit of a speed issue with the Chargers' corners. Specifically with Asante Samuel Jr., speed was kind of a big issue I had of him coming out of the draft, was that he can get beat deep. And I think that for the Raiders, if you get Deshaun Jackson on Asante Samuel Jr., and, you got to take a deep shot at some point, because Carr has a great deep ball. Watch how on this play, even though Samuel has a good amount of space, he still is going to get beat right here. And a big part of it is because of, in this case, Henry Ruggs' speed. Now you have Deshaun Jackson, who I don't like as much as Henry Ruggs in terms of how well he plays football. So will that be able to work? I don't know. And I'm interested in seeing what the Chargers do to counter that. Maybe just put one of your faster corners like Campbell on Deshaun Jackson. I think that would be a good fix. But that's a very interesting, side part of this that I'm fascinated by, and I'm wondering how much that will come into play. So now for the ending of this. So this is the way I'm looking at this. The first game, the Raiders scored 14 points in 12 possessions, which is 1.17 points per drive. The Raiders, on average, score 1.95 points per drive over the season, and the Chargers give up 2.51 points per drive. My prediction of this game is I'm going to something like 2.2 points per drive. I'm giving the Raiders, I think it'll be about an 11 possession game, so I'm giving the Raiders 24 points in their 11 possessions that they get. To me, that feels about right. So just kind of in conclusion, what I think the Raiders need to do, like I said, if you can get a deep shot with Deshaun Jackson, take it. Do what you can to get that deep shot. I think you can have an advantage with a deep shot on the sidelines, but it will probably have to be with Deshaun Jackson. And again, if you're, if a big part of your game plan at this point in your season is let's rely on a guy who we acquired halfway through the season, that is maybe a bit of a concern, but at the same time, like, hey, Deshaun Jackson has some value, like, use that. But I definitely think that the game plan we'll see more frequently will be stuff like, Darren Waller should get a ton of targets. He averages 8.4 targets in a game when he plays. He only had 7 in their first matchup, just a little bit below what he typically averages. That should be up. He should get 10 targets in this game at least. You want to target him often. As long as he's healthy, give him the ball and give him the ball often. There should be at least, 10 targets, 2 tight ends, I guess is what I would say. The flip side is, though, you got to run the ball better, maybe run the ball a little bit more simple. And for the Chargers, it's kind of less of a game plan thing and more of a just keep doing what you're doing. I mean, it worked last time. I think you just keep doing that. And the one thing I would make sure that you pay attention to is just speedy receivers, because the Raiders will hurt you on that if you do not pay attention. So that's, I think, their biggest thing that they have to pay attention to. And put Derwin James on Darren Waller as much as you can. Those are my 2 things for the Chargers. I think if the Chargers do those 2 things, they probably win this game, and it's probably a lot less than 24 points. But I also think that, A, are they going to do that? And B, I still think that, I think the Raiders will run the ball more effectively than they did last game. I think that they will. So that's kind of why I'm saying I think that the Raiders will have a much better game than they had the first time these 2 teams played. Although I'm still saying that the Chargers on average give up 2.51 points per drive. I'm still saying they're only going to give up 2.2 in this one, because I do think that it is, a bit of a favorable matchup for the Chargers there. So that's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. How many points, if there's 11 possessions, how many points would you say the Raiders score? And who's going to win? Well, you'll have to watch my other video that's going to be out later today where I talk about that. So be on the lookout for that. Again, always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.